Hello and welcome to the back garden garage, where I have bought a BMW E30. Now, I did know that there was some rust in the car. What I didn't know was just how much. Now, this car had rust in the arches, in the sills, in the floor, in the rear panel, in the roof. It's just about everywhere. So I have decided to do a full bodywork restoration on this car. Sheet metal work is not something that I've really done, only in small quantities in the past. So this is going to be a very steep learning curve. Now, I have already repaired the rear panel on this car because I have decided to put the car on a rotisserie. So I have made a car rotisserie, got the car mounted in the air to allow me good access to the underside, and I have started to repair some of the panel work. And now I'm going to move on to the back side of that wheel arch, the bulkhead and the floor section, because they are really bad and in desperate need of a bit of attention. So if that's something that sounds like you want to follow along with, feel free to subscribe to the channel. And if you like what you do see, give me a thumbs up. That would all be appreciated. So this is the arch in question. Now, I have already repaired this section here and in behind all of these brackets. That has been done. I've also, as you can probably see, sprayed some rust converter on some of the areas as well. Most of that was just such a light surface rust that it will do the trick, although I will need to address some areas where it's a bit deeper, but I'll get to that a bit later. And yeah, this is the section that we're going to be tackling in this video. I thought I'd quickly stop in from the future just to let you know that this session does not go as well as I was hoping it to. So I don't quite achieve the goals that I was going for. I struggled along the way and it took forever just to get to the point that I'm on now at the end of the video. So if you've got any advice for me on where I've gone wrong, how I can improve it, feel free to let me know in the comments below and enjoy the rest of the video. So as I have such a mammoth task ahead of me, and I don't really know where to sort of begin, I've just been working it front to back, top to bottom. Now, as the car is upside down, this is the top. So I'm going to start on this section here. I'm going to get a rust and paint remover disc on the grinder, take all of this back to bare metal to see how deep the rust goes, and we can look at repairing this little patch. Now this is where it starts to become a little bit more involved. I've cut out the bulkhead and I've cut out the arch, but there is still a bracket on here for a fuse box to clip onto. Now, as you can probably see, it is rotten right through. It actually creeps up further on the inside than what you can just see visible from the outside as well. So I'm going to have to chop out this section and repair it. I need to do that before I can get all of the other sections all welded back in. So it's time for a little bit more cutting and just to remove the rust completely from this little area. So that didn't go anywhere as near as well as I would have hoped, but I've got it cut out, and you can see this, I'm assuming factory undersill in here, clobbed right up, and this is the rusted area. So it's obviously not done its job, even with that amount on it. Anyway, I'm going to get this cleaned up, and then we'll move over to the bench and see exactly which bit to make up first. So I've actually cut out a little bit more metal, only a little bit, just to give myself some good metal to weld to, but it is all cleaned up in there now. Now this section is made up of three panels joining together. We've got the bulkhead section, we've got the inner arch, and we have the cowling that all joins together at the same place. I've decided to start with the bulkhead section because that is the point where everything attaches to, and conveniently it is also the easiest part to make. So nice and simple. Well, that's why I've got two of them. Wasn't quite happy with the way that the first one fitted, so I've gone around and made the second one. This now fits nicely, and I'm going to go ahead and get this welded in. So we skip forward a few days, and I had a bit of a disaster trying to weld that plate in. The bottom half, where it's the bulkhead into the wheel arch, welded fine. But the top half, up underneath the cowling, it just kept blowing holes in it. I put patches in to try to repair it. It just did not work. Getting really angry, frustrated. Managed to somehow break the strap off of my welding helmet. So I just packed up, went home in a strop. So I'm back today, and I've got that section cut out with all of the ugly patches put in there, and you can see why I decided to remove it. And the new section I have to put in, I've actually, I think it's called jogged, I'm not sure of the term, but I've recessed the edges to allow me to weld it like a lap weld, but the end result kind of comes out flush. You're not going to see the repairs completely hidden out the way, so I'm happy to do that in that location, because otherwise I do need to remove many panels to actually gain access to it, and I'm not willing to do that, especially at the level that I'm at with my welding skill. So maybe in the future I might readdress it, but this should be fine. So with that done, I can now move on to the lower cowling section and get that made up. So that section is done, and just double checking that it fits nice and tightly, it's time to move on to the next section, and that is the actual bracket that holds the fuse box in place. I'm just trying to make out some measurements so I have got a good baseline to start with. And lastly, we need a patch panel to fill in the arch section. So that was a bit of a session. Now, ignore this hole, I'll explain that in a minute. But overall, I'm happy with how this has come out. I could have, this inner arch here has got a radius to allow it to sit against this back panel. Now I could have made that a little bit sharper, that radius, because there's a little bit of a gap before it sort of meets up against this back panel. But it is all obviously welded in, bit of protection over the top of it. It's going to get seam sealed as well. But I am happy with how that looks. Now this section. Now this is where I made a slit when I cut this panel out. And I tried to weld it up and it just kept blowing holes. It just kept bigger and bigger. It was just not going well. Now I did try to already repair this with just a smaller hole. And again, it kept blowing holes. So I have measured this metal here. And it is only 0.5 of a millimeter. So that is probably, I'm at least hoping, why I'm struggling so much to weld this little area here. So I'm going to do what I did on the inside of the car, and I have made up a panel which again is jogged around the edge to give me some overlap in the panel, and I'm going to mount it in from behind here. Weld it in from the front, clean it up, might need a bit of a filler to finish it off, getting looking good. But again, this section is covered by sort of trim, and you're not going to see it. And then if I seam sealer it from the inside in there, I think we're going to be golden. So let me get this welded in, and then I can move on to the next section. So that upper section has driven me absolutely insane. I'm going to leave it there before I cause more damage by trying to fill the holes and stuff like that. I'll come back to it at a later point in time. But it's structurally welded together. Just needs some neatening up. So on to the next section of this bulkhead. Now this section goes through into the footwell. It joins onto the sort of chassis inner arch section here. I'm not sure if I need to replace this flange or if I can just clean it up, but the only way I'm going to find out is by getting the old grinder out, cutting through it, chopping it out, and seeing what we got left. So that's what remains of the seam in here. There's a little bit left up here, but there is completely gone down here. So I'm going to have to make up a bit of metal. Now it is just a seam, so I'm just going to make a strip and repair that in there and get that welded on. And then I can move on to the actual panel on the outside. Okay, so the seam is now in, and I've just put some weld through on it. Now I have also made a template here, just made out of paper to begin with, and I have cut it slightly oversized to where it needs to be, because this piece that I need to now fit in is shaped in all sorts of directions. We've got little bulbs or bulbous sections on this side, we've got proper creases in this side, and I don't know how much is going to shrink this metal by. So I am going to leave it big, find a point to start with, which is probably going to be this bottom edge and this crease going up here. When I've got that made in, I can then work from that, and I should have plenty of metal still to work with, because the last thing I want to do is put it in and find that it shrinks too small. I've got to put more sections in. But speaking of more sections, there is a little bit here where there is a stud on the other side, and that has got holes in. I can see where it's gone right through, and it's really rusty. So this little section here will need to be cut out, but that is a completely flat section. So I'm gonna get this first part made, and then I'm just gonna cut a square out of there to add it in. And for the eagle-eyed among you, there is a stud on this piece I need to put in. But again, I will get the shape made first, get it welded in, and I can use this as a bit of a template to know where that stud locates. That is my plate all roughed out. I've got my bends and creases and little bits in it. However, it's a bit big, so I held this in the footwell, and then I got my dad to draw around the gap on the backside. So I'm going to trim a large amount of this off, not all of it just yet, and then I will try and, well, I'll keep trimming it until I can make it fit. Now this plate is actually in. Well, it's not welded in, it's just fitted up. Now, it doesn't fit perfectly, but it fits plenty good enough. So what I intend to do now is just start tacking around the edges. And I will need to like grind away and chop out and hammer in and just shape it as I go, just to get that thing all fitting right. I've got the holes drilled in it. So yeah, there's the holes for the spot welds. I'm going to get this tacked in, and as I tack it, I'm going to sort of grind it and hammer it and shape it as I go, just to get that final last little bit, because the majority of it is shaped, just needs a bit of tweaking as we go. So I'm going to get that tacked in, and I'll probably cut this out as well and look at repairing that little section, because like I say, that is rusted. And yeah, wish me luck. So that's the welding done. Apart from this little section here, like I say, I do need to remove this bit to replace a stud on the other side. I did try to weld it up, but it just blows through, or there's just not enough metal there. So for now, I'm going to clean up all this with a grinder, inside and out, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so those sections are now cleaned up, and they look pretty reasonable. I'm happy with the outcome of them. I'm always going to critique my own work and always think I can do better, and over time I think I will be able to do better, but for the time being I am happy with that outcome. Now I did plan to complete this whole section in this video, however it's taken a lot longer than expected just to do those few sections, especially seeing I had to do them multiple times and correct mistakes. It took it a little bit longer than intended. So with that being said, I think it's been long enough now on this video. It's probably gone on for way longer than what I would normally intend it to. So I'm going to leave it there in this video. And I'm going to tackle that footwell and floor section all in one go on the next video. So if you want to join me and see how I get on with that one, subscribe to the channel. Give me a like if you like what you've seen. Any advice, very much appreciated. Give me a comment in the section below, and I will see you next time.